Okay. Smudged off my glasses here. Schmutz. That's the word for the day. Schmutz. Stuff on your glasses so you can't see what you're reading if you're reading comments and stuff like that. Hi. Hello there, Gabriel. It's Jason with Green Country Agroforestry. I can't talk today. Wednesday, 8:30 p.m. Time for another live stream. I'll tell you what, it's been a week. It has been a week. I've probably done more fall gardening stuff this year than ever before, and I can see the difference really in the workload. Previously, I've just let the crops die off in the fields from summer and not really bothered too much with what we're going to harvest or do come fall. But this year, I find myself busier than usual. So I mentioned earlier in our community post that we were working on harvesting these this week. This is a Jerusalem artichoke tuber, and this is about the size of the ones that we planted. I got about a dozen of them and planted them in sets of four, 3 sets of 4 all around the yard. 2 places did kind of okay, about half of them turned out, and then one place had just like maybe one plant that grew out of the tuber that we planted. And so we started digging them up, and you'll see more of what we dug up, but we're getting clusters like these out of those, and each one of these is of course one of these just bundled around this runner that you can see right there. And these Jerusalem artichokes are sending out runners about maybe 1.5 feet away from the plant in all different directions from each one of the plants. So you can imagine after a couple of years of growing what we're going to wind up with if I take these and I dig them up and divide them. Because if you look closely at every one of these little crenellations here, it is actually a separate tuber that I could, let's see if I get in here and leverage it a bit. I could probably separate those out. Oh, it might be a bit hard at this stage because they're so tied in there together. I think what we're going to do is allow these to sit over winter, and they're going to dehydrate a bit, and that means that they're going to loosen up a bit. They're going to pull in, they'll shrink, and then it probably will be easier to work each one of these separate tubers off to spread them around and plant come springtime. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to take all of these and we're going to set them aside for now, and we're not going to do anything with them. And we're going to hold on to them until spring. And then come spring, we'll plant them and we'll have even more Jerusalem artichokes. But that's of course, delayed gratification. That's what we're talking about. Instead of taking them and cooking them all up or eating them or selling them all or doing something like that with them, we're going to take them, we're going to hold on to them, and we'll save them for another year so we can spread them and have more and more and more. Likewise, we have these pecans here, which I've been getting. And let's see, 2016, we had a bare lot. And then that winter, going from 2016 into 2017, we planted the first pecan trees. So 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. They've only been here for about 6 years. And I'm guessing the tree was probably about a year or two old whenever we got it. So it was a year or two old in a pot. So already kind of pot bound a bit when we planted them. And then they've been here for about 6 years. So we're looking at 8-year trees, maybe 9 tops. And they're producing very well for the age that they are. And I do love pecans. And I could really just take all these pecans, and as I get them, I could just go ahead and crack them up, right? I know how to do that with just a couple of pecans. I can do it out there in the field. Don't have to be at home. Don't have to use a pecan cracker. Well, this one was kind of scrawny, wasn't it? That one. But I can do that, and I can eat my pecans. I can enjoy them. Or I can take these guys and I can save them. I can plant them and grow trees out of them and have more trees. And Vicky wants me to send her some pecans like as they are, so she can plant her own. So sometimes I'm feeling, I don't know whether I should feel like the The little boy in that thumbnail picture is sitting here going, I just gotta wait. I gotta wait. I gotta wait. I'm bored. I'm bored. I'm bored. I can't wait. I can't wait. And sometimes I'm wondering if it should be kind of like the kid that's sitting there Christmas Eve looking at their presents going, ooh, I can't wait. I can't wait. Because as we go forward, as we go through each successive generation that we get seed from, land raised seed, everything gets better. This is the first year growing these the Seminole pumpkins. This is a fairly decent example of sort of the average of what we got. Here's my head, and here's the pumpkin. It's a lot of food. And 2 vines produced quite a bit. And I imagine as we go forward, if I keep on saving the seeds, they're going to get more productive. I don't know if we're going to get bigger ones. I think this is plenty big enough. Actually, too big, really, for my purposes. I'm thinking I probably want something a little bit smaller than this one. Maybe. Just more of them. But we'll be saving seeds from these. So he says the AR stat got 1 higher this week. Carolyn says she'd like to buy some pecans to plant too. You mean as opposed to me sending trees out, you'd rather I just sent pecans that you could plant and grow seedlings? Oh, Vicky says, I learned from bitter experience never to pray for patience. Oh, yeah. Don't pray for humility either. You don't want it. You don't want it. You could probably figure a dozen different ways to exercise humility yourself without being forced into it, right? All right, let me read what Vicky saying. Maypot seeds are dry enough. Just okay, cool. Yay. Talk about delayed gratification. Yeah, well, of course, we still have to stratify them and get them planted and everything else. But let me see. Hang on. Hey, neighbor. Let's see. We glossed over my last comment. What was your last comment? Where was it? I missed it. Oh well. It'll show up somewhere. It's Lynn, the Okie. Hero said, I don't care, just as long as I get pecans on my property somehow. That's something. You have to wait for them to produce. It really is planting trees is really an exercise in delayed gratification because you don't get your harvest right away, right? You put it in the ground, and if you're lucky, it's going to grow into a tree that you can sit and watch for a few years as it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. In the case of a fruit tree, maybe 5-6 years you start getting fruit. Nut trees sometimes a bit longer. Yeah, but if you can delay the gratification and say, okay, the space I've got this tree growing in, I'm not going to see a real yield from it for a while, right? Not going to see a yield from it for a while, but the fact that I put it there and it's growing and it's always growing all the time, whether I'm out there tending or not, that adds up if you do this over and over again. So that whenever your yields start coming in, you'll be surprised at what you're getting. I don't think I've quite hit the surprise section or the surprise moment of a food forest quite yet. I know it's on the way. I kind of have those early signs that's what's going to happen. You'll see whenever I show you this is kind of a tease, right? You'll see whenever I show you the video of the sunchokes that we're digging up, how many we got out of just so few tubers that we started out with. It's quite a bit. And from what I'm seeing, it's probably going to be growing exponentially in the future. Now, I really don't know yet whether or not I'm going to be able to eat sunchokes. I'm pretty sure I can eat them. The question is, will I like to eat them? Will I enjoy them? And I don't know. And I won't know because I'm not going to cook them this year. I'm not going to cook them this year because if I cook them, then I won't have as many to spread around. And although I do have quite a few, I don't think I have quite enough to experiment in the kitchen with yet. So I'll take them and I'm going to delay my gratification. I'm going to spread them around this year. And then next year, we're going to get to find out if they're any good to eat. And Lynn is asking me what the red thing behind me is. Let me move out of the way and point up at that thing. That is called Canna indica purpurea. It's a tropical plant that lives here in Oklahoma. It'll actually overwinter in the ground, come back year after year. The hummingbirds love it. It makes huge starchy rhizomes under the ground that we can eat. It's good for a food crop. And of course, biomass. The top produces just tons and tons of biomass if you want to chop and drop that. We're getting ready to process those probably next week. Maybe. We'll see. This week, of course, we just finished wrapping up harvesting Jerusalem artichokes and clearing up the debris from the pumpkin patch. There's a lot of it. And that's going into the duck yard, or into the, well, it's not the duck yard, it's the corn patch where the ducks happen to be. All of the backyard's the duck yard. But it's going into the corn patch. So the ducks will be able to pick through it, tear through it, go through there, find any of the insects that are living in the vines, for example, vine borer moss. They'll go ahead and get rid of those for me while they root through that. That will break down over the course of the winter, and we're congregating it in the walkways in the corn patch. So as we approach the end of winter, we start going into spring, we clear out that walkway area again, like we did preparing the bed this past spring. We'll be doing the same thing over again, just taking the soil that we've made out of the walkway and moving it out onto the planting area for next spring. Harvesting soybeans out there. Yep, there's a lot of it. Oh yeah, Carolyn's got the new place. 7 acres, I think it is, right? 7 acres and lots of clay. Lots of clay means plenty of phosphorus, so it's not a bad start. It's better to have lots of clay than lots of rock and no clay. Mm-hmm. In a way, that's what Florida is. Lots of rock and no clay. The rock is sand, but it's rock. That's all it is. It's just rock. Very, very porous rock. Yeah. I thought it was something. Yep. Cannas might actually really help out a lot in starting new food for us. Don't know about with all the clay though. You'll have to do something to break it up because they want to have some room to expand. And I've got a twig in my beard. So it's just working over here and picking it out. So, there we go. What kind of twig do we have here? It's rather fibrous. Nope, I don't think it's a tree. Woody plant material. Lamb's quarter, I think. Yeah. I was out doing some chopping earlier, and I don't think I managed to comb it all out. So I had a little piece there. I think I had some of my hair earlier. Brendan caught it and said, "Hey, you got a leaf in your hair." Yank it out of here. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's lots of sand in Florida, and then the Georgia property is all clay, and it's that kind of it's not like a dark red, but it's kind of like a lightish reddish color. If well, I saw a video for pictures of it, so it's not the worst stuff in the world to work with. Oh my gosh, you're kidding me! Billy's doing a live stream right now, and you're here. Oh my gosh, how could this be? Let me see what Billy's live streaming about. It's the Angry American Podcast. Who's he got? He's got a bunch of people. I can always watch it later. I can always watch it later. Oh, how does Billy manage to do that? Get all these people to show up on the podcast? I could put the link down there so people come in. I could add you to the stream, and nobody will. I don't know why that is, but for some reason, early on, people just rather watch me talk than come in and talk to me. It makes my job harder because I find it a lot easier to hold a conversation with somebody than to just address the screen or address a camera, address the imaginary audience and stuff like that. If I'm actually talking to a real person and holding a conversation, it works better for me. But anyway, I was I was knocking around. I was knocking around on the internet earlier this morning before I was going out to work, um, because I was being lazy. I was planning on going out and shooting some video, and was waiting for the light to get to the place where it would be where I was shooting, which you have to do now because you only have a few hours of decent light at the moment to shoot with. Who knows? Maybe I'll get like an external floodlight or something to help out. But at the moment, whenever I'm shooting in the Great Barber, I have to wait until just like 1 o'clock in the afternoon because that's whenever the light comes over it. Up until then, since the sun's further in the south now, the pecan tree is shading out the Great Barber, and so I have to wait until it gets to that point. So anyway, I'm sitting here watching videos on YouTube because as well, I was waiting for the light to get right. And I moused across a channel that I hadn't subscribed to. It pops up in my feed from time to time. He's a fellow that wears a lot of denim. Uh, I believe yeah. He wears a lot of denim, and he's a homesteader. If that tells you whose channel I was watching, then there you go. But he was talking about the question that he had asked, and this is the thing drew my attention was, is America the bad guy? Was the question he was asking. I was like, on the surface, you go, oh my gosh, we've been patriotic our entire lives, right? And now we sit here and we're wondering, are we on the wrong side in some of these things, some of these conflicts that the U.S. is getting involved in? I did it again. I said we, although the political structure of this country absolutely that has nothing at all to do with me, my views, or anything I have to do or say. Um, after many years, I'm 52 years old now. After many years of being involved and trying to vote hard, I've come to the realization that all the solutions that we're looking for are probably not going to come from Washington D.C. We're going to have to come up with those solutions ourselves. And of course, yes, Stabby knows the guy I'm talking about. He was commenting on this and making very similar observations. And I was like, yeah, you know what? I think this is a wave that's spreading across the country, where we're going to realize that, yeah, sometimes we have to sit down and live in the shack for a while. Grand, no, it was not grand though. Right there. That tells you which channel I was watching. But so, okay, I had a similar experience whenever I was a teenager, and we had packed up and moved from Oklahoma to Missouri. We moved to the Ozarks on top of the hill, about an eighth of a mile from Rock. Was it eighth? Not Rockaway Beach. It was a little bit further away from Rockaway Beach. It was about an eighth of a mile away from the waterfront of Lake Taneycomo, which is where Rockaway Beach is located. But anyway, that's the nearest town. Eighth of a mile off the water, but we're on the hilltop. A bit far to walk if you want to get water, so we had to have water piped up to us on the hilltop. But we were doing a lot of this early homesteading work, and living out of a trailer. So I could kind of relate to where he was going with his not really a rant, the story, talking about how when you get to the property at first, you're in that little used trailer. It's moldy, it's cramped, you don't have enough room. It's not ideal situations, but you go through this because you know that on the other side of it, whenever you're done doing everything that you're going to do, all the improvements that you make to the property, the house that you eventually make, cabin or whatever it is that you're going to do, it's all going to be worth it. It's all going to come to fruition, and you're going to realize that all this stuff, this delayed gratification, I didn't have the nice things. That is, how do I put this? The nice things come as the payoff for the delayed gratification, right? But as long as you're going for the pre-made frozen food pellets, let's say, from the supermarket, and putting them in your freezer, and not taking the time to cook a home cooked meal, um, that sort of thing adds up. It destroys your health over time. All the things that you can do where you get closer to nature, uh, even though those are sometimes onerous, I think is the word we're looking for. That it's troublesome. Uh, we have to just sit and wait and wait. And do this sometimes because there's projects I want to do. I desperately want to do it, and I have to wait for the proper time. I have to wait for in some cases for the money to be there, and in some cases for the seasons to be right, and not just the regular seasons. You know, we have 4 seasons: summer, spring, fall, winter, but also the seasons of life sometimes have to be right for some of the projects that I have in mind. Um, and the only thing I can do is just wait until the time is right for everything that I've put into place that makes it possible for change to happen, to mature. And occasionally it looks like I'm not doing anything because I'm sitting here and I'm not doing anything. I'm just waiting. Yep. You can't cut lumber from acorns, is what Vicky is saying. And it's so true. It's so true. But the seasons are a changing, and slowly but surely, I'm seeing those things happen where the soil in the front yard is transforming from being an island of clay to something that you can actually grow food in. It's kind of impressive, and flowers and pretty things. We have all of that growing. Um, Same thing is happening in the back. I have to do a little bit of work coming up tomorrow. I was going to do it today, but I wound up doing more ground prep today. Tomorrow we'll do the work on spreading the cover crop, and I'll probably do video of that. I'll let you know what kind of video I'm making. One video is going to be the harvesting of Jerusalem artichokes, which I showed to you. For you guys that weren't here in the lobby earlier or chat earlier, that's about the size of the Jerusalem artichoke that we planted in the spring, and that's the size of an average cluster that we pulled off of the plants this fall. Each one of these little knobs is yet another one of these, and there's just dozens and dozens of these. This is just one of them. You'll see a lot more of these on the video that was coming up. Probably Friday, maybe. I think will be the Jerusalem artichoke harvesting video. But then we've got the question of, what do we do with the bare ground? In the corn patch, we're taking the debris from Jerusalem artichokes and from pumpkins and stuff like that, and we're putting that over the ground to be a cover over the winter. But the area where we had those pumpkins, now that's going to be clear. The ground's there's nothing to cover the ground there, so I have to come up with something. And the plan that we have is to put in some winter greens, not winter green, but winter greens. Greens that like to grow in the cool season. So things like kale and stuff like that. We'll put in some kale. We'll put in some more radishes, and maybe some pak choy. Because right now we're having this temperature that's today we were up in the 80s. Last 2 days we got up into the just short of the 90s, and then later on this week we'll be in the high 60s, maybe low 70s for highs, and that'll continue on for a couple of weeks at least. These winter greens only take about 35 days to grow, so we'll try some of those. I might try some peas too, maybe a little bit of a snow pea or sweet pea. That might be something we can pull off for a winter garden. That's I got to tell you, this is kind of a new territory for me. I haven't done a winter garden. I really haven't done much of a fall garden before either. But you got to kind of play around with this, and part of it's necessity because I have to keep something in the ground. The more I look into this, the more I study it, the more I come to the realization that the biggest thing that we can do. Pardon me, this over here someplace. Holding my brains in my hand. Okay. The biggest thing that we can do for our soil's fertility is keeping things in the ground growing, keeping roots in the ground. Keeping roots in the ground, keeping the ground covered. This keeps organic matter high, keeps the soil moisture high, keeps the soil microbes alive and living. Because whenever there's roots in the ground, they're putting out sugars into the soil. They're feeding microbes. They're also oxidizing microbes and taking up the minerals and other nutrients that the microbes bring with them. There's that exchange going on, but is pumping life into the soil. And that life in the soil does much more for us than any amount of synthetic fertilizers that we could apply. It's a much better system. It's an on-time delivery system that works constantly. And that's the reason why it's so effective. So we have to keep roots in the ground. That's what I'm trying to say. Because I have to keep roots in the ground, whenever I harvest, whenever I clear up and I have that bare ground, it means I have to plant something. And since we've been doing this season after season, that means we're going into winter and I have to plant something. I have to plant something for winter. And I've never done that before. I've never planted anything specifically for winter. Doesn't mean that things don't grow by themselves. I mean, we do have things that pop up. Purple dead nettle is one of those plants that's just sort of ubiquitous. It pops up all the time. I don't really have to do anything to get it. Although I have wondered if I wanted to spread it deliberately to places that didn't have it, because I find it to be such a wonderful little ground cover plant. It pops up all by itself. I don't have to sow it. It covers fairly well. It's not the best for holding soil in place, but it does cover fairly well. So it provides, you never believe the size of that bug. It's about the size of a pinhead. It looked huge. It's like, oh my gosh, it's tremendous. All right, what was I saying? It doesn't hold the soil down as well as some of the grasses, but it does a good job of keeping the moisture up. And of course, it provides the organic matter and sugars and stuff like that that the microbes like. So it's pretty good. Lynn's asking if I'm growing winter wheat. I am growing winter wheat for the first time this year. I have a trial patch, about 280, just a little short of 300 square feet that I sowed up in winter wheat. Because we're in bottomland, I used a winter white wheat instead of a red. So yeah, I mean, lots of new stuff. So whenever I talk about it, if I say something that doesn't, from your experience, it doesn't work, and I think it does, and you can feel free to let me know, because it really is my first time really doing a winter garden. I'll be bungling a bit, I'm sure. Anyway, winter wheat is in the area around where I'm planning on building our duck pond. I want to build probably about a 300 or 400 gallon duck pond. That amount of water, I think, will be enough for us to be able to have a volume of water for the ducks to be able to swim around, splash in, enjoy, and should stay mostly free for the most of the winter, for the fall and the winter. We do freeze sometimes, and sometimes we freeze hard, but usually it's only for a few days, and we don't have frozen solid ponds for the most part. As a kid, occasionally got that cold, and it was just a few years that we'd have large ponds freeze over. Now this is going to be a smaller pond, so it'll probably freeze over a lot easier unless I put a heater element in it, which I might wind up doing. I was contemplating putting tubing in it to circulate air for the summer. Having air circulate through the pond before it comes into vents in the house might help cool the house off a bit. We might be able to reverse the flow in the winter and keep the pond warm in the winter. Maybe that's something we could do for the fairly low expenditure of energy, DC power supply, that sort of thing. Let's see. Carolyn said, I like to grow collards, cabbage, and broccoli in the winter. There you go. We're in our first year of growing a perennial brassica called Turkish Rocket. It's kind of like a perennial mustard, like I guess. It's not exactly like a broccoli. It's not exactly like Rob. It's not exactly like mustard. It's kind of like all three at the same time. So it makes a little floret on a stalk that you can eat, and the leaves are a bit like a mustard. So only had one that turned out well. I planted a dozen, but it's more of a. Piggy says, "Well, more watercress. She has lots." Let me get some more ponds built. Let's see. Uh, anyway, so I planted a dozen of these things. All but one of them didn't make it. I've got one that, since it's a cool season vegetable, it's now starting to take off and grow, and it's doing well. So hopefully that one will spread. Maybe that's the one that wants to grow here in Oklahoma. The rest of them just like, this isn't New York. I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like it here. We'll see how it turns out. Lynn saying, winter wheat is so beautiful as it grows and gets ready for harvest. I hadn't really thought about how beautiful it is. That it does have a nice golden shade as it approaches that point. I think the beauty of it is looking at it and knowing what it is. It's just a rather unassuming little grass there, but it has the potential to provide the flour that you need for breading catfish. The flour, the wheat for the flour, for the fish fry. We've got the corn for the breading. We've got the eggs. We're gonna be set. Now all I need to do is come up with something for oil. Joe is asking me, okay, how easy or hard is it to grow rye? Joe, I don't know. I've never grown rye. It's a good question. I have no idea. We do use a little bit of rye, or no, actually, no, I don't. I was going to say we use a little bit of caraway, which is the flavoring that you get in rye bread that gives it the funky flavor. We use a little bit of caraway when we're making sauerkraut. We don't really use much rye. Mary gets rye bread for making sandwiches with whenever she's on the road, like a Reuben or something like that. But we don't have we haven't been growing a lot of that, and we don't have a lot of space for growing grain. That's one of the problems with growing grain. If you're going to grow grain to have it for a food source, you have to have a lot of space devoted to it. So for small holdings, homesteads, and stuff like that, expecting to get a large amount of your calories from growing grains is not really that realistic. So the reason we're growing wheat is not because we're relying upon it for food. We're growing it for other reasons. I mean, for one, we need a ground cover. Number two, the ducks don't eat it. And one of the places where we need a ground cover is in the places where the ducks are congregating, because they'll go through and they'll gobble up everything except for a few select items that they just don't want to eat, and wheat is one of them. And so to have some sort of ground cover in the area where the ducks are going to be hanging out over the winter, planted winter wheat and went, okay, there we go. Now we have a ground cover for there. We'll be using the all of the crop waste and yard debris and stuff like that to cover the area in the corn patch, and then it's just a matter of going through the pumpkin patch with our winter cover, which we mentioned before. Oh, carrots. We're gonna add carrots to it. I don't know if the carrots are going to turn out. They'll give it a shot. The way our weather is running these days, who knows? We could get another full growing season pounded out before we have another hard freeze, or we could have a hard freeze next week. It's anybody's guess. I'm kind of sweating a little bit right now. As a matter of fact, I'm looking at the temperature gauge up on the wall. It says it's about 78. 78 in here. It's November 8th, 2023 in northeastern Oklahoma, and it's darn near 80 degrees at 9 o'clock at night. Can you believe it? Whew. I'll tell you what. Grandmom Zoo, pick it and eat it, says hi from South Carolina. Hi. What's it like in South Carolina? Are you guys getting any fall-like weather, or is summer hanging on for you out there? Ooh, Vicky said, someone. Yes. Experimental Farm Network is trying to develop a perennial rye. Lynn's asking if I'm in the greenhouse. No, this is a green screen. This is a green screen, and it's a picture of the garden from the driveway. So this is from the driveway looking. Oh yeah, see stuff up over the corner. It's from the driveway looking towards the grape arbor. You can't see the grape arbor because the cannas are in the way. It's like looking into a jungle right there. But that's just the garden from the driveway. It's from the driveway view. Oh, Joe, it did freeze. This picture is not current. All of these plants that you see behind me are now brown. They are now brown. Next week, probably next week, I'll be going by and we'll be cutting the tops off of them and digging them up and sorting them out into totes with peat moss to save them for the winter. Cannas, of course, can be left in the ground in zone 7, 8, 9, 10, all the way down south from 7, really. And you can sometimes get away with leaving me in the ground further north too. But if you want to reliably make sure that all of your rhizomes survive, go ahead and lift them if you're in zone 7 north. Of course, if you're planning on eating them, go ahead and lift them. But it's not absolutely necessary. You can, in many cases, leave your canna roots in the ground all the way up until you get hungry and say, hey, I'm hungry. Let's eat some cannas today. And then you can go dig them up and eat them. Canna cooking videos we'll definitely have coming up this winter. I'll show you a couple of different things to do with them. My favorite still is dicing them up or cutting them up into cubes, about ½ inch or so. About the size you cube potatoes for stew or soup, and putting them into soup or stew. And just like a potato, they have the same flavor as a potato, and they fill the same role as being a starchy root vegetable in your soup or stew. Unlike a potato, however, they won't dissolve. They'll hold their form. So they have a little bit more substance than a potato. It's a little bit more dietary starch, or not dietary starch, a little bit more dietary fiber. They're not stringy like celery. They're not tough and stringy and fibrous. It's just they have more dietary fiber. There's more substance there. As a result, whenever you eat them, it makes it feel like you've eaten something. It gives you a good full feeling, in addition to being high in calories to keep you going for an extended period of time. It's a resistant starch, so it takes it a while to digest, unlike potatoes, which is a less resistant starch and digests quickly and gives you a spike in your blood sugar. So other reasons why you might want to have canna instead of potato. But of course, potatoes are very, very convenient and easy to cook with. They have that going for them. Nice soft skins that you can just wash off. And a lot of people peel them, but really, I don't. I don't peel potatoes at all. I just take them and cut them up, slice them up, dice them. If I'm making hash browns, run them through a shredder, and they're very quick and simple and easy to cook. Cannas take a little bit more effort. So because there's more effort required to prepare them, that may be a reason why they don't get picked up and sold for food in the supermarkets so often. Well, they don't get sold in the supermarkets for food here in the States. In other parts of the world, though, it's a different story. That is the root that they make the glass noodles out of. Those nice little transparent noodles, glass noodles or cellophane noodles. The traditional recipe calls for arrowroot starch, but canna root starch has been used as a substitute because it's a lot easier to grow acres upon acres of cannas and process them for starch than it is to try to grow acres and acres of arrowroot and try to process it for starch. So the traditional Vietnamese noodle is actually made with canna. Hi, kitty. Are you okay? You heard that, right? Wow. Oh, they're talking over there. Hey, Ezra. Ezra kitty, what are you doing? Oh, that's not Ezra. That's a different kitty. That's one of the kids' kitties. We're currently violating our rule about having only one cat in the house. I know. They're being confined to one room. That doesn't make it better. Ooh, Vicky is saying she's got some seeds. I tell you what, go ahead and grow them, and if you can grow them and get seeds of your own that have land raced, send some my way. Really? The cats are carrying on over there. So anyway, after you grow some, if you want to send some seeds my way, that would be okay. But remember, I only have a limited amount of space to grow things. I might be able to. It's moringa, so of course I'll try to stick a moringa tree in somewhere. That well, I'm wondering, Joe, if he's going to come over. He's just chilling and hanging out over there by the um, by the sideboard. I don't know. Usually he'll come over and sit around so he can watch me. If I'm the only one in the room, he'll come over and watch me. And at night he's been breaking into the bedroom so that he can come and hang out and keep my feet warm. So he knows the assignment. Uh, but Ezra is a big kitty. He's the kind of like that gray striped tabby cat, or I don't know what you're supposed to call it. It's kind of gray and black striped, I guess, right? Pretty common American short hair, gray and black striped, but huge. He's about 20 pounds. He's a big kitty. He's a really big kitty. I mean, a really, really big kitty. Like big enough that you start to worry that if he's not friendly, you're in trouble. Yeah, because cats they punch way above their weight. Okay, so Vicky's saying you'll have to overwinter in the greenhouse. It's not frost hardy. So something that I might be interested in after we've got a greenhouse set up over here. Maybe after. Daryl says have tons of lamb quarter seeds this year. Yep, they produce a lot. Yeah, and of course I'm putting them right back into the corn patch whenever I'm cleaning up. I'm chopping up things like lamb's quarter and tossing it in there because the ducks eat it, and so the seeds go all over the place. But I discovered whenever I mixed in the cover crop mix along with the corn. Well, actually, I planted the corn and then followed it up with a cover crop mix. I discovered that substituting the things in that were doing the things for the soil that lamb's quarter was doing by itself resulted in fewer lamb's quarter plants appearing. At least in the corn patch, they didn't show up in the corn patch. There was like maybe one or two that showed up, and there was a couple of big pigweeds that showed up, but it wasn't full of lamb's quarter and pigweed like it was previously whenever I didn't have the cover. And so the only thing I did was put a whole bunch of seeds in the ground, seeds for plants that will uh, make deep tap roots to alleviate compaction, seeds for plants that will pull up phosphorus and bring it to the surface. And of course, things that just keep the soil in place, because that's the basic function of everything that grows is keeping the soil in place. But these specifically the things that we're working on soil compaction and the things we're working on phosphorus uh, having those in there seems to have reduced the amount of lamb's quarter that appeared, even though we do have tons of lamb's quarter seeds in the soil seed bank. And I let them go to seed all the time. And I put those, I put that material, the lamb's quarter foliage and the seeds and the stems and everything else in the corn patch to compost it down. So we have plenty of seeds in the seed bank. And so it's not an absence of the seeds that causes us to have less of that. It's simply that I found something that the soil likes better in those rolls than lamb's quarter, and said, hey, I don't need to grow lamb's quarter. I've got this. And it favored the daikon radish and buckwheat instead, which was kind of cool in all actuality. And I got to harvest some buckwheat. Not enough that we can cook any, obviously. Oh, and this is not it. Is there any over here? No. Ooh, that's a swamp milkweed right there. I need to stratify those this year. Uh-huh. Get those spread around a few more places. All right. So it's not that the seeds weren't in the soil seed bank. It's just simply that by selecting different weeds, things that are better than the lamb's quarter for the roles that the lamb's quarter was filling, nature had picked out lamb's quarter. Nature said, hey, you got a better candidate for this job? I think we'll run with that one. And so I didn't have as much lamb's quarter. I guess that makes sense. You guys have been following Matt Powers by chance? Matt Powers, anybody? You follow this guy? Years and years ago, when I was looking into amaranth and trying to decide what kind of amaranth I wanted to get, because I was looking at pseudo cereals and going, okay, what can I grow? What can I grow that's going to fill this niche? That's going to do this thing for me. That's not a grain. That's going to allow me to have some of the same benefits. And I was looking at quinoa and amaranth and everything else. And okay, amaranth, we can grow amaranth here. All right, not a problem. What kind of amaranth should I grow? And so I was doing searching, probably the same way you guys do. You know, I go to YouTube and go amaranth, and I get video of a redhead sleeping in bed and don't really know what that's about. Then I realized I didn't spell it correctly, and I spelled it correctly, and I got the flower. And I got Matt Powers. This was hearkening back to the days that he was working at Baker Creek. It was a spokesperson for Baker Creek, and he had the orange giant amaranth. If you guys remember that one, and I looked at that and was like, wow, a pound of seeds per flower head. That's amazing. And I went and got some, and I grew it, and was like, it's too big. Just too big. Takes up too much space because you got to baby it. Clear out all the area around it so you have this, big stalk, right? Huge stalk going up about 10, 12 feet with a monster seed head on it. It's too much plant. I was like, okay, I like the concept, but let's scale it down a bit. And so I started looking for other ones to try a whole bunch of different amaranths. And the one that we got that I really liked was the elephant trunk amaranth. Really cool flower. It produces this big bulb, and it's a whole bunch of tiny little flowers. It's not like one flower. It's a whole bunch of tiny little flowers on stalks and clusters of them. And it has this big ball of them at the bottom. And then it sends a shoot straight up out of that. And that's all covered with flowers. And it kind of looks like an elephant's trunk sticking out. And that's why they call it elephant's trunk amaranth. And it also makes just tons and tons of seeds. And we collected them. I still have quite a few of them. And the first year they were huge. They were huge the first year. And then the next year they were still pretty big, but not quite as big. And they just progressively got smaller and smaller and smaller. It's like, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? And of course, I found out this is exactly what happened to Matt and everybody else that started out by growing amaranth. There's like, we spread it out there, we grew it, so everywhere it's going boom, boom. We're like, yeah, this is awesome. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, it doesn't grow as big anymore. What happened? And what happened, of course, is the amaranth fixed the problem in the soil with the soil being oxidized. So it corrected that, and now it does not grow as big anymore because the soil doesn't need it as much anymore. But whenever the soil was in desperate need of amaranth to correct pH imbalances, it was like, boom, I'm going to grow big. And it did. But no, I mean, I still plant it. I still get seeds from it, just not as much. So I'll plant some, get some seed, mix it into my cover crop mix, and spread it around again. And we'll have a few plants pop up, and I'll thin them out and favor one or two. So we'll have one or two that'll get big enough that I can collect seed from. But it's no longer a huge item. It's still something that you can get a few meals out of every year if you keep amaranth going in your garden. Grow a few seed heads. Get them big enough that you can collect seeds from them, save them for growing for microgreens. Whenever you're processing, whenever you're collecting your seed, you should scatter enough of it on the ground that it'll restart and it'll regrow. And all you have to do is just thin it out every year and choose the plants that you're going to keep, and you're good to go. Vicky's wondering if amaranth and sunflower can interplant. Yes. The short answer is yes. Yeah, they can. I've done it. But once again, they're gonna strive for the same niches, not entirely. They're gonna strive for the same niche in space. They're not taking up the same niche in the soil ecology. They're doing different things in the soil. Sunflower is more of a calcium pump and soil compaction alleviation, and then amaranth is more phosphorus and soil compaction alleviation. So they do some of the same things, but not identically. So the soil will tolerate both growing together and say, I like to have both of these here, is what I'm trying to say. It won't be either or. You'll get both. Vicky's saying dandelions useful for compaction. Yeah, absolutely. And they go away, but they don't go away entirely. I have a couple. Like this year, I counted 3. I'm dropping this hand like because it was 2, 3, 3, 2, 2, 3. This is 3. Yeah, there were like 3 dandelions. 3. I counted them in the backyard. I walk around and they were like on the border right there where the walkways are. So it's the areas where you're walking. So it's getting compacted more often. That's where they wanted to pop up. But as long as we have just a couple show up and they go to seed and we have the seeds being replenished in the seed bank, which is what the soil is doing. It's holding the seeds. They don't rot away. They stay there. They stay there until the circumstances are right for them to germinate and grow, which is like the most amazing, mind-blowing thing ever. So if you take a microscope and look at the soil, all the little seeds that are in there, like, why are these seeds not all germinating and growing? It's because the circumstances in the soil are not right for them to grow. The soil doesn't need them to grow. And so they don't. They just sit there and go, not my time yet. I'll just wait. And they just sit there. They just wait until the right time appears. So I don't know. It's just amazing. It's amazing. You throw seeds down and the things grow. And the things grow that nature wants to grow there. If nature doesn't want them to grow there, they're not going to grow. And you're struggling and struggling and struggling, trying to get this garden to grow. Why is my garden not growing? I just don't understand. It's like, well, because nature has jobs. Nature has jobs for the plants to do, and the plants you selected to grow are not fulfilling the jobs that nature needs fulfilled. So nature's going, yeah, I don't want these plants. I want the things that are going to do the job that I want, and that's the reason why. I'm trying to come to grips with the idea that maybe one of those examples might be hazelnut trees for us. Maybe the bottomland is just not going to accept hazelnuts. I mean, they will grow. That's not the problem. It's that the indigenous animals around here seem to like to eat the roots of hazelnut trees. We'll put it that way. So getting them to grow may be a challenge, and it might be simply I might have to go through a whole bunch of different varieties before I find one that is unpalatable to groundhogs and to gophers and stuff like groundhogs. I think it's gophers is already, but it could be rats too. We have rats, lots of rats. It's a struggle, I'll tell you what. But hey, they don't seem to like the Jerusalem artichokes. They tried them. They ate a couple, and then they stopped. They stopped eating them. It's like, all right. Yep. And we can say some seeds, they'll just last in the soil bank for decades, just waiting for the right conditions to grow. Decades, and who knows? Maybe even longer. Under the right circumstances, you could have. Um, so you have an area where you have seeds get into permafrost and it stays frozen and doesn't thaw out for even longer, maybe hundreds of years, centuries, over a millennia. You could have seeds last that long, and then the right circumstances arrives, and they can germinate. Probably would be a stretch to say that seeds in the soil seed bank from before the ice age um, pushed the Laurentide sheet down to Kansas and grew to 4 miles thick. It's probably a stretch to think that maybe those seeds would still be viable after tens of thousands of years below the ice, but it's possible. It's possible. Uh, I wouldn't want to try to I wouldn't stake my life on the number of decades. Um, Decades certainly. How many? Who knows? I mean, it can be a lot. And of course, with humidity control and temperature control, uh, you can have seeds store and last for a very long time indeed. The beans that were found at Mesa Verde, the Anasazi beans as they're called, we don't really know how long they were there. It could have been decades. It really could have been. It was more likely in the vicinity of over 100 years, and it could have been more than 100 years. In other words, multiple hundreds of years that they were there before they were found. It was in the 1950s that the archaeologists found the Anasazi beans sealed in a clay pot in a cave at Mesa Verde. Uh, and they took them and they soaked them and got some of them to germinate. And I did a similar experiment with some 17-year-old Anasazi beans, and so I still have those around here. I'll probably grow some this next year. I was thinking about it and I found them. I was like, I ought to plant these, but it was really late in the season and I decided not to do it because I really want to grow them to the point where I can get more beans out of it. If I started them late, I might be able to grow them and eat them as green beans, but I wanted to make sure I got them to maturity so I could replant. So I put it off, and I didn't plant the Anasazi beans this year. And we'll do it next year. Let's see. Let's see. Diana too is saying, "How do you cook your chokes? The Jerusalem artichokes." I don't know yet. One of the things that we'll be doing. Ooh, I need to make sure that this is. Um, Sorry, this is probably not the best time to do this. Um, I need to experiment with how to prepare them. I've been reading a little off and on, but I need to experiment with cooking before I start trying to pass on what I've learned because I haven't learned that much about cooking them yet. But I'll pass on what I learned as I learn it. This year, like I said, you'll see how much we got in the video. It'll be out on Friday. Um, it's enough for me to spread around and multiply, so we have a lot more to work with next year. And then next year, I'm going to have enough that I can afford to experiment in the kitchen and try out some recipes and cook it and have it turn out horrible and throw it away and cook it again and have it turn out a little bit better and eat some and go, throw it away and cook it again and finally get it right. Yeah, it's the way I usually do whenever I'm doing anything for the first time. I mess it up royally at least once or twice before I figure out what I'm doing. And hopefully by the time I get around to recording it and showing it to you, it's the time around that I figured it out. Sometimes it is the time around that I figured it out that I show it to you. So, um, one of the things that I've heard is cut thin, soak in salt water or a brine solution to help remove some of the gassiness of it. But once again, it's something I'm gonna have to experiment with. Uh, it's something that my ancestors ate, but I haven't eaten myself. So it's going to be exciting. This is what I was talking about. I just realized that I have these. I was talking with Vicky. I have to come inside. It's warm in here. I was talking with Vicky about these. These are these tiny little seeds in here are ivy gourd seeds. Ivy gourd is it's a gourd vine, night blooming, produces white flowers, like the Loganaria ciceraria, the bottle house or the birdhouse gourd. These have a little bit different shape to them. Little bit different shape. They're so tiny compared to birdhouse gourd seeds. These guys are. Can you see them? Aye. Change the camera like that. There you go. This little itsy bitsy things. All right. So ivy gourds, whenever their fruits mature, they turn kind of a bright scarlet red, and they're sweet. So it's a late season fruit that grows on a vine. So that'll be kind of interesting to see if they turn out. They're used in Asian cuisine a lot, and you can find them sometimes at Asian markets. Not so much at the regular supermarket. Like so many other things that are kind of specialty crops, they can grow in this particular growing zone, zone 7, but they're not typically grown because it's not traditional Western fare, I guess. It's just not something that Westerners grew up with. Kind of like eating daylily flowers. It's one of the things that's very, very, very big in Chinese cooking, traditional Chinese cooking. Lily flower is on the shelf there at the Oriental market, dehydrated, of course, but you can come out and pick it fresh in the garden. The lily flower they're talking about is daylily, Hemerocallis fulva. Traditional Chinese cooking. Of course, if I took it down to the Chinese restaurant down the road from us and said, "Hey, would you like some lily flower?" They'd look at me like, "Well, I don't know what that is." Well, I don't know. There's I think there's a couple of them there that actually would. It depends. It depends. They're not all they're not all born here. But people who are born here, they tend to overlook things like the value of a duck egg. I found that kind of interesting. The amount of time that your family has lived in the United States is in direct proportion to whether or not you will buy duck eggs, pretty much. Recent immigrants from Southeast Asia, they want the duck eggs, and they'll pay for them. Everybody else is like, I don't know about the duck eggs. They're not that much bigger than chicken eggs, and they're so much more expensive. Why would I want the duck eggs? And then it's this entire salesmanship thing. You pretty much have to give somebody the eggs and go, here, try the eggs, and after you try them, come back and let me know if you want more. And then typically people come back and go, those are the creamiest, richest, most filling eggs I've ever had. I don't think I've ever eaten an egg that had proper nutrition before today. Can I get more of those? And then they're sold. But yeah, until you've had that moment of realization that you've been missing out by eating chicken eggs your entire life. Oh, quail eggs. Quail eggs are tasty, but so tiny. You have to get a bunch of them. Mary eats quail eggs. She's the nut that eats all the quail eggs, like pickled and everything. Where they pickle the eggs, you can take them and you can bounce them. Ooh, yes. Vicky says she's trying to grow the tromboncino squash, which is it's a dual purpose squash. So kind of like oh my goodness. So kind of like Seminole pumpkins are dual purpose, right? You can pick them green, you can eat them like a zucchini, and you can let them mature. If you let them mature, you can eat them like a pumpkin, or like a winter squash, which is what they are. But tromboncino is another good example. It's not a cucurbita machata. It's a what is it? Not pepo. Cucurbita. Yeah, not on the tip of my tongue. It's in the back of my head. The filing system will bring it around probably once we're off stream. it's not the machata. It's the inner the one in between it. Anyway, there's like 3 different versions of cucurbita. that typically you think of a squash. And Peppo is your like acorn squash and patty pan and stuff like that. And then Machata is butternut. There's another one. I can't remember it off the top of my head. Anyway, the Trombocino is that one. Rampasante. And yeah, they're supposed to be pretty good. I heard about them from Spirico. He's got a big one sitting behind him whenever he's doing his live stream. It's about 3 foot long, Tromboncino. And we grew some last year. Not this year. Last year we grew some. They didn't turn out great because we had a lot of leaflet bugs. And the leaflets did not like the idea that we were growing Tromboncino squash. Demolished our fruits. They were all over it. And then this year we planted sunflowers in along with everything, and the leaflet bugs were nowhere near as bad. We still got a few. We still got some squash bugs. I saw squash bugs around, and the squash bugs can't seem to do anything to a Seminole pumpkin. They just look at it and go, "Oh, you're a squash bug, huh? Tough luck, buddy." But we had some, but nowhere near as many, and we didn't have any losses to them. And pardon me. Yeah, the coffee's trying to come back up on me. I'm trying to figure out. Red Trombocino would make that squash look like a patty pan. Yeah, they're pretty big. Maybe not quite as big around, but certainly a lot longer. And having that long, well, all this area here where the neck is from, right about there where my index finger is, from there on forward, all that is solid flesh once you get the rind off. This part here is where your seeds are. So there's an empty cavity there. Your regular pumpkin, the big round one that you think, jack-o'-lantern pumpkin, it's got a big, huge cavity, and it's mostly cavity, right? Mostly cavity. And the seeds and pulp are in there. And then you have maybe, if you're lucky, about an inch to an inch and a half or so of flesh, and then the rind on the outside. So it winds up being a chore to skin the rind off to get to the flesh. I mean, you can roast it with the rind on. You cut it into slices and roast until it gets tender, and then the rind just peels right off. And you can do it like that. Or steamed and then peel the rind off. You don't have to cut it off with a knife before you get started. But whenever you have long, straight neck, it's easy to take your knife and cut straight along the length of the neck and cut down like that. You see? Straight down across the neck. So the longer neck makes it easier to prepare. You have more flesh in the neck. You don't have the big cavity. So it's kind of useful. I like the longer neck squash more than the large body. I kind of kept this one because it has this really nice, cool, classic shape, doesn't it? It's not quite that Seminole pumpkin acorn, and it's not quite a butternut squash either. It's sort of in between, and I kind of like it there. I think we will probably keep seeds from this one because it turned out really well. Anyway, I'm going to keep seeds from a bunch of them, and we'll see what happens. Will we have them for sale this year? I think we'll have them for sale come spring. Perhaps. Yeah. I'll just save all the seeds that I remember to say. I'm not going to guarantee that I'm going to remember. Every time I crack open a squash, I'm going to save the seeds. I'll try to remember to save them, and we'll see where we go from there. Hopefully I'll have a bunch and I can share some. But of course, if you're in a hurry and you don't want to wait until I've got them and you want to get your hands on some Seminole pumpkin seeds now, one place that you could go look is David the Good's daughter. Is it Daisy? Daisy the Good? She has an Etsy store, and I believe she sells some Seminole pumpkins as well. So that's another place to go look for them. And then as far as Tromboncino goes, I'm going to keep on checking back with Spirico because he's had a plan to crossbreed a Trombocino and a butternut. I think it was his plan is Trombocino butternut, and get those crossed. Now that is two different species, so it will be a hybrid, and what he gets is going to be an F1, and it's going to have to be stabilized from there. So long-term breeding project, but the idea was um, to get more of that butternut flavor into a Tromboncino, which already does taste a little bit like a butternut whenever it's mature. So there's that. Mm-hmm. What's cabbage? We're gonna have cabbage. I need I need to experiment with cabbage. I haven't done much. We have pak choy. Pak choy is like a little Chinese miniature cabbage. It's pretty good because it grows fast. And we tried growing it in the spring. And the spring, I've told you about our springs, right? The reason why I don't grow potatoes is because of our springs. Potatoes like a nice, long, cool growing season. And of course, bok choy likes a nice, long, cool growing season. It gets too warm, it bolts, puts up the stalk, puts on flowers, boom, it's gone. Right? Makes seed, but you can't harvest it for the greens anymore. You can't harvest the leaves. Uh, but the fall season, that's different. Say right now, I mean, right now stuff could be trying to bolt because it's so warm. But we have a longer cool season in the fall, so we may be able to pull it off, growing it here. Joe's asking if the squash that I've got here can be turned into pie. You could, yeah. I mean, it's pumpkin. It's cucurbita machata. It's pumpkin. Yeah, you could turn it into pie. There we go. That's my head. So it is pumpkin, and then yeah, it would taste like pumpkin if you made it into pie filling. But there's so many other things you can do with pumpkin other than turn it into pie. Keep it. Oh, I almost put my coffee on myself. Cut it into pieces for stir fry. Keep it fairly firm, like a butternut squash. You can cook it in your skillet with on relatively high heat with butter, lightly caramelize the outside, and oh my goodness, when you use like slightly crisp, like it turns kind of a reddish gold brown on the outside whenever you turn the pieces, so they have just a little tiny bit of crisp on, not burnt, just tight caramelized. You know what I mean? Anyway, those are just so tasty. You just eat little pieces of that all day long. That creature mixed in with vegetables and other stuff too. I think we'll be doing a soup tomorrow. That may be. I don't know if that might be a bonus video if I do it. If I shoot video of it. If I share the cooking process, because I have a couple that I need to cook. The 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 stem popped off of them right here at the end where the stem attaches. So I have a couple where the stem came loose, and if that comes loose, it doesn't really matter if the squash or the pumpkin was otherwise cured and would have made it. It's not going to make it with a hole in the top there. So I've got like 3 of them that I have to cook up. So that means I'm going to have a whole kettle of pumpkin soup. And I believe we're going to make it with bacon and sausage and onions and some milk and cream and other stuff like that. So first time cooking it, don't know how it's going to turn out. I might record it, and if it's okay, it's Daisy at Good Seeds. Is Carolyn's confirming. Did I say Daisy? I wasn't sure. Yeah, Daisy at Good Seeds. Daisy at Good Seeds. And of course, not just Seminole Pumpkin. She has other stuff too. And of course, they're growing it in Alabama. So, you know, zones 7, 8, 9, 10 should do okay. But the only stuff that we have problems with is whenever seeds came from like zone 5 and 6. Zone 6 sometimes doesn't know how to behave whenever it gets here. Oh, Joe's asking about a Japanese pumpkin, starts with a K. No, haven't tried it. Haven't tried it. Uh, well, I don't know. The more genetic diversity. The idea is we get a bunch of genetics in there and then let the climate death march have its way, and whatever survives. And hopefully by having a whole bunch of different genetics to start out with, we'll have more candidates that make it. And once again, that's more delayed gratification. Just year after year, as we collect seeds, sometimes just a few. For example, the Misawanese daikon radish that I grew this year, I got just a couple seeds out of. So I'm going to save those and plant them in another spot. Oh, okay. I did have an example. I was talking about getting buckwheat that I planted for cover, and I've got some of those little itsy bitsy buckwheats. There's one of them right there. Not a lot, but we did have some that managed to grow and produce seed. And we take the ones that grew and produced seed, we replant them, and I'll set aside a patch come spring as just landrace seeds for cover crop. We'll plant those, and most of those should grow, mature, and produce seed spores. Then we can plant a larger area and a larger area and a larger area, and slowly over time we'll phase out the cover crop seed that I buy and have to bring in from elsewhere and replace it with cover crop seeds that I saved from previous years. And that's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. But once again, if I can delay gratification and avoid eating everything whenever I get it, save it for seed, we can have more of it and eventually slowly begin to wean ourselves off of the grocery store and the feed store and the seed store and everything else. And yeah, maybe they'll survive Oklahoma better, because this is a rough place to live. It is. Very so afraid to eat it because then you won't have it next year. I am afraid to eat it because if I eat it, then I won't have as much to plant, and I'm trying to spread it so I have enough to eat and enough to sell and pass on. We're trying to spread it to other places. So sometimes that just means we sit and we wait, and it's either I can't wait until I can actually start playing with my goodies. And sometimes it's I can't wait until I start playing with my goodies. It really depends. At the moment, like I said, I don't know what side of that form of anticipation I'm coming down on. A little bit of both, I think, because I'm starting to see results, and I know that it's going to get better and better as we go forward. So, I'm going to call it a night, guys. I'm almost out of coffee. Not that I need any more. Mary says, I'm a hoarder. Yeah. Me too. I like to hoard plants. We get all different kinds of plants, scatter them around, collect them. And then, well, we'll see what happens. I'm going to call it a night, guys. Thanks for joining me this evening. As always, I hope you found the video informative or entertaining. If you did, you know what to do. I'll catch you next time. Until then, get out there and get growing. And as much as possible, try to exercise a little delayed gratification. Plant a seed, let it grow. Wait until your trees are mature before you start munching away. Wait. No, can't quite crack it with one hand. We got some pretty good solid nuts this year. Anyway, guys, Vicky is asking what the inscription on my cup is. It's that. That's what it says. So when the poo hits the fan, get some ducks. Although they probably meant that kind of duck. I don't know. Anyway, good night, everybody. I'll catch you next time.